Hello and welcome to the Book Pharm podcast, a podcast started by two very bored pharmacy technicians looking for a hobby. Thanks for tuning in and let's get started.
All right. So we're back again. Look at us. Okay. So last time we went over all of Monday's events in The Maid, the book. Now we're going to go over all of Tuesday's events. And starts right off, Mr. Black was found murdered in his bed, or killed, and he was dead. He was found dead.
Dead in his bed.
Dead in his bed. And Molly found him, and then she was taken to the police station for a witness statement. And then she went home and was asked to cover for Cheryl the next day because she called in.
Cheryl had horrible, awful trauma from not seeing Mr. Black dead.
Exactly. So chapter 6, Tuesday. So starts off, Molly had a nightmare about Mr. Black, understandably, because she never really processed what happened, and so she has this nightmare about him. I don't remember all the details about it, actually, but I think his dead face was in it, and she was scared.
I think that he was sitting in Gran's chair or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
he was. He was
on-
sitting in Grant's chair.
He was either like standing in Gran's room or sitting on the chair. And she told him like to get out, like that's her Gran's possessions. Something along the
Yeah,
lines of
yeah, that's right. That's right. And then she gets ready for work. She's leaving. Mr. Rosso, we learn, is her landlord, and he's like, "Molly, where's the rent money? Because it's very late." And she
because
says,
it's due.
"Mr. Rosso, yeah." She says, "I promise to pay you in a few days when it's payday." Mr. Rosso isn't happy about this, but he just kind of grumbles and walks away.
He knows that her and her Gran are good for the money. Like they've been tenants there for years. But
Right.
he still wasn't too happy about it being late. But she's like, "You've known me and my Gran, and we're good for the money. You'll get it on payday."
Yeah. So he can trust her, and he knows this, but he still has to be firm because
He's a
running
landlord.
a business. Yeah. So once Molly returns to work, everyone's really concerned for her. They're like, "Oh, we didn't think you were gonna be here, because of what happened yesterday." And she's like, "Well, Cheryl called in." Um, so she goes to see Mr. Snow, and he's reading the paper, and it has an article, uh, which of course is about Mr. Black's death, and it reflects poorly on the Regency grant. Mr. Snow, tells her it makes it seem like we're kind of like a shady hotel right now. We're not very clean, is what Molly thinks, because she's clean freaky a little bit. Mr. Snow admits that Giselle is still staying in the hotel, but she's been moved to the second floor. Yeah, she has nowhere to go, so she's staying there. And she's been moved to the second floor instead of the fourth floor, and Sunitha is now cleaning that room instead of Molly. So he tells Molly, "You're not going to clean Giselle's room. Sunitha is." And then Mr. Snow also warns Molly not to visit the fourth floor crime scene, to which Molly responds, "Then when will I clean it?" And he tells her, "You're not going to, because it's a crime scene." And she was like, "Okay."
She's like, "All right,
Then
whatever."
yeah. Then Molly visits Juan Manuel, gives him the key card, and she tells him to be extra careful because the police are everywhere, especially on the fourth floor. Then she goes to social to see Rodney and get the paper. Rodney hugs her, and she's thrilled about this. She's like, "Ooh,
Oh yeah, that
If
hairless
you remember
chest,
that.
baby.
Yeah, and then she notices he has a black eye. And he avoids questions about it. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what happened to your eye?" Right? And he's like, nothing, nothing, nothing." So from last episode, Juan Manuel had the burns on his wrist, and now Rodney shows up with this black eye. Something weird's going on, right? He seems very uneasy with all the police work around. He keeps saying Molly, they took you to the cop shop, which I don't know of any non-guilty person who would call it a cop shop. Uh
And he's like essentially just asking like, did they say anything about me?
right. And she's like, "Well, what why would they?" But we'll get into that later. Uh so he asks to meet up with Molly so that she can give him all the deets about what happened yesterday at the station. And Molly misreads this as a date. She's like, "Oh,
A
second date,
date.
finally. It's about time we got on a second date, right?"
After what, like a
Uh,
year?
yeah, a year. And then I wrote, Rodney seems very suspicious at this point. Clearly. A little suspicious with the whole like you need to tell me everything. Let's meet up later. The black eye, I was questioning that a little bit. So the next chapter, chapter 7, we learn about her and Rodney's first date, which we learn was not really much of a date, really. So what happened was previously, about a year ago, she walked in on some seemingly illegal activities involving two suspicious men, and as well as Rodney and Juan Manuel. So they were in a room on the third floor that was supposed to be empty, and it wasn't hers to clean. It wasn't anybody's, I guess, or something. Anyway, it wasn't supposed to be cleaned. It was supposed to be empty. Nobody was supposed to walk in, and so these guys were doing their thing. And she walked in thinking, "Well, I'm just gonna clean it." They had checked out already, and so yeah. So once she walks in on this, the two men are like, "Oh, what the heck, man?" And then Rodney is kind of like panicking a little bit. And then Juan Manuel is like trying to get Molly out of the situation. He's like, and then Rodney's explaining like, to the two other men. I think Molly described them with like face tattoos or something. So possibly gang something. I don't know. Am I
Yeah, they're like these
stereotyping
big
people
O,
now?
they're like these big O guys.
Yeah, and Juan Manuel's like, and then Rodney's like trying to explain to these guys, well, we can use Molly. She's really good at cleaning up after
She's very good at
messes.
cleaning, and she doesn't ask questions.
That's right. And then Juan Manuel like is trying to like rush Molly out of there. He's like touching her arm, and then Rodney seems to get upset at this, and she thinks, "Oh, Rodney's jealous because he loves
Jealous.
which I think Rodney is just flustered that Juan Manuel is freaking out and making it look very suspicious. Uh, and she thinks, yeah. So then Rodney says he wants to meet up with her later that evening. He's like, "Okay, Molly, we need to meet up later and talk about this." And Molly misreads this as a date, and she goes shopping for an outfit. She's super excited. It's so heartbreaking how excited she is. Uh, she
Yeah,
goes and gets this outfit.
it's very sad how excited that she is.
Yeah. She goes and gets this outfit. It was like a polka dot blouse, right? And
She gets these
some
heels and
kitten
these
heels.
jeans.
Yeah. And she's super excited. She spent more than she knew she should have, but she was like, "It's a date. I should dress myself up." And Rodney takes her to Olive Garden, which is Molly's favorite
Love
place.
the Olive Garden.
Yes, she does. It's so cute. And then while they're there, Molly is very like cultured and perfectly mannered. She's talking about how much she gets like the Italian tour plate where it like has
Tour of
a
Italy.
course. Yeah. You could tell I go to Olive Garden very often because I don't know anything about it. Um, so Rodney is more of a slob, but every single time he does something that Molly would normally think of as like what's the word? Like
Improper.
yeah, improper. She gives him immediate excuses for it. Because he's
Yeah,
beautiful.
because he's
Like he
Rodney.
puts his Yeah. He puts his elbows on the table, and she would normally have a problem with that. But she's like, well, now I can look at his forearms. How beautiful his forearms are.
So pretty. Or like he doesn't order the unlimited breadsticks and salad, and she's like,
Right.
oh, oh, but I guess I can
Yeah.
excuse that. He may just want to get, you know, I don't know. He may just want to skip to the main meal. He may be really hungry or something like that.
Right. Yeah. She just keeps giving him excuses because of her. She's blinded by all these things because of her infatuation for him. And then Rodney explains to her that Juan Manuel is an illegal immigrant. Oop, I hit my microphone. And the two guys in the room were Juan Manuel's friends, not his friends. He distances
Definitely not
himself from
Rodney's
those
friends.
people. Yeah,
And the bag that they were carrying, the stuff that they had, not Rodney's. That's all Juan Manuel's
yeah, that's
and
all
his friend.
his. And Molly gives him extra excuses for his behavior. She's like, "You're like Robin Hood, doing stuff for the good
Yeah,
of people.
sometimes
You gotta
Robin
do."
Robin had to do bad things for good reasons.
Yeah. And then he said, so Ronnie then tells her she mustn't tell anyone about this, okay, what she saw in that room, and asks her to slip key cards to Juan Manuel because she would be the least suspicious person to do it. He's like, you're very good. No one would expect you to be doing this because you always follow the rules, whatever. And Molly's like, okay, yeah, Robin Hood man.
I
Robin
can help with that.
Yeah, and Molly, I wrote this note. It says, Molly has a knack for picking the worst men.
Yeah.
Uh, and then they're leaving the Olive Garden, and he leans in to like kiss her cheek, and she's like, well, I'm gonna position myself to where he kisses my lips, but she misjudges, and he ends up kissing her nose, but she is still thrilled about it. She's like, he kissed my nose.
Still happy about it.
Yeah. So Molly is clearly not Molly. Rodney is clearly using Molly and taking advantage of her. And seems shady. Like I think at one point on the date she even says like I'll keep your secrets close to my heart because you Rodney are close to my heart or something. And he's like
Yeah.
yeah, right.
It's like, oh
Like
yeah, thanks.
yeah, he's just weird. Not a very good person. But Mr. Preston again tries to warn Molly. Hey, that guy. She moved on. She was like, no, no, no. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to hear anything bad about Ronnie. So, chapter 8, Molly worries for Giselle about what will become of her. Because Giselle's supposed to be like the heir to all of Mr. Black's money. But also,
Mhm.
there's the whole family thing. And since she was the second Mrs. Black, she just worries about her for a little bit. And then Molly shows up for her second date with Rodney at the bar in a shady booth at the very back after work.
And she's like, how romantic.
Um,
It's
yeah, she's
secluded.
like more romantic. Yeah, so sad. He basically interrogates her about the witness statement she made. This confuses her a little, but not enough to make her think, yeah, this guy's not great. He asks if they asked about Juan Manuel. She asks him, why would they ask me about him? He has nothing to do with Mr. Black, right? And Ronnie's like, yeah, right, right. Like he's
Yeah.
clearly giving away too much because he's scared of the police. They exchange phone numbers, and Molly is enthralled. She's like, oh my gosh, he wants my number. She puts it in his phone, and she puts Molly, the maid, and then puts a little heart next to it. Which is so
Yeah.
sad. Just so sad. Because Ronnie is clearly using Molly.
Yeah.
And then Ronnie tells her to call him if anything happens. He also says that he'll call her later. And then I put odd note. When leaving the hotel, Rodney specifically waits until Molly states which direction she's going and then state he's going the opposite. Uh, like you said,
Yeah.
you go east, I'll go west. Um,
You go west? Yeah, I actually live east. Let me hail a cab for
yeah, I'm,
myself.
yeah. Bye. Again, just so shady. Mr. Preston warns Molly yet again about Rodney, and Molly's like, oh, whatever. Okay. Chapter 9. So Giselle's waiting for Molly outside of her apartment, and this was not expected. Uh, Giselle wants to speak with Molly, and as they're walking to her apartment, the landlord, Mr. Rosso, yet again asks for rent, and Molly is extremely embarrassed because Giselle is right there. Anyway, she
Yeah.
goes through the whole thing with Mr. Rosso again, and they enter her apartment. Molly makes tea while Giselle's like looking around the apartment. Uh, Molly's feeling a little bit self-conscious about the apartment because it's clearly her grandmother's apartment still. Like it has all her grandmother's things in it. They're not as rich or wealthy as Giselle was.
Mhm. But then Giselle tells Molly, I actually really like it because it reminds me of my old home when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of
Yeah,
puts
because she's
Molly at
actually from
ease because she
Detroit.
realize, yeah, she's from Detroit. So it helps Molly to realize that Giselle didn't come from riches; she just married into it.
Yeah. And Mr. Black would just tell people that Giselle was from Martha's Vineyard because it would make her look better, I
Better.
guess. Uh, yeah. Molly and Giselle talk about Mr. Black's death. And Giselle reveals that Mr. Black's daughter is very angry with her and thinks that she killed Mr. Black. Uh, and then Giselle also asks Molly what she told the police. And Molly tells Giselle that, I told them about your pills that were spilled on the bedside table. And Giselle panics for a second, which I was a little bit confused about. And then later, Giselle mentions she was trying to keep stress from killing her husband, Mr. Black. So I thought, was she drugging him? Trying to, anyway?
Maybe. Well, I don't know because then she goes on to say that he made her sign a prenup, which meant that she didn't get anything after he died.
Right.
So I'm wondering, like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
because
don't think
she,
she did it on purpose. All I'm saying. Sorry.
no, you're good.
I
She
would
like
say.
told Molly about her mentor, like that her mentor had had a
Mhm.
had husbands and had divorced them numerous times, and she's like now, very wealthy, and so that also I'm like, well, maybe she was trying to kill him to get money, but then it wouldn't really make sense if she had signed a prenup because she wouldn't get any money.
Mhm. I was thinking, but because Giselle cared about Mr. Black enough, like they had an abusive relationship. So even though he was awful to her, she still loved him. She said. So I think that she was actually concerned about Mr. Black's stress levels and was trying to drug him, maybe to help him. Uh,
Yeah.
which I think, which she kind of admits that, but I don't think Molly sees it. She kind of oversees it. That's something I saw when I was thinking uh, when she said, I was just trying to keep the stress from killing him, and I was like,
And what I'm thinking is maybe it's like Xanax because they're little white pills.
right,
Maybe it's Xanax, people get high off of that stuff, they can die, and
mm-hmm,
it's for anxiety, stress relief usually. So maybe she's taking Xanax, but she obviously didn't get it through a prescription, I'm sure. If she's worried about the police
it's a
finding it,
benzodiazepine,
yeah, or she's just worried about the police thinking that she killed him, like drugged him.
right. That's some pharmacy
Gotta
tech
flex,
stuff right
gotta
there,
gotta flex
benzodiazepine.
our. Do you want to explain what a benzodiazepine is, Lucy?
Well, a benzodiazepine is used for anxiety. There's anxiety specific medications. I don't, as a pharmacy technician, I just know that it is for anxiety. And Xanax is also alprazolam. That's
Yeah,
the generic form of it.
yeah. Not
Um,
legally allowed to list side
I
effects
don't know
of
necessarily.
pharmacists.
Yeah, yeah. Cannot list side effects. Um, benzodiazepines are used for anxiety. I don't know how they work into the bloodstream or anything like that. I don't know anything about that, but I know the fancy class. It's a benzodiazepine, which is a fun word to say. Benzodiazepine. Benzodiazepine. Anyway, alprazolam. Okay. Yeah. So Giselle actually is getting a little bit anxious and takes those pills herself. And then Molly notices a change in her behavior. She gets a little bit more relaxed, you could say.
Yeah.
Um, Giselle says that Mr. Black, she and Mr. Black loved each other in their own way. Giselle reveals their last fight was over their lifestyle. Giselle didn't necessarily like the way they were living. She wanted to be like kind of more relaxed. Yeah, settle down. And she asked for the deed to the Cayman Island villa that they had, which we can assume was the deed in his pocket. That's what Molly assumes. And then Giselle says she wants to have Molly back cleaning her hotel room,
Giselle said that she's going to tell Mr. Snow.
which I feel like Mr. Snow is not going to be very thrilled about this request. So, and then she says, Molly, you're like a sister to me. Uh, and then Giselle asks a favor of Molly after giving her $200. So Giselle gives her $200, and then Giselle asks, she says, well, you know something, Molly? I left my gun in the ceiling fan of the penthouse on the fourth floor. Not the ceiling fan, but the bathroom fan. Um, and Molly can't say no, even though she is extremely stressed about this request.
Yeah.
She can't say no
Because Giselle asked for a
and
treat and basically uses the excuse of,
which
like, he's dead now, so what protection do I have? I need a gun.
right, that's what she said. That's what Giselle said. And to me, Molly seems just a little bit set up for this request. I think Giselle, okay, like we talked about last episode. You felt that Giselle might be again kind of taking advantage of Molly. I didn't really feel that way, but I had to consider it once you mentioned it. And me, I did not want to believe that Giselle would treat her like that. Um, and when I was reading this and she was, opening up to Molly and saying all these things to her at her apartment, was being, it was like they were friends. They have this weird dynamic. But at the same time, the whole I have being nice to her and then giving her money and then saying, can you do this outrageous thing for me? Seemed a little bit not
Even though,
quite
like, it's a
nice to me.
crime scene, like police are flooding the fourth floor, but also, can you get my gun?
If Molly returns, yeah, a gun. If Molly returns to the crime scene and is seen with a gun or
It's
getting a
gonna look like
gun
she did it,
out,
or at least she had something
right?
against him.
So I don't know if maybe, again, that Giselle is ignorant in a sense, that maybe she's not, like, she's a little dumb, maybe, but I don't know. Either Giselle is ignorant and that, like, she's doing all these horrible things by just being ignorant of the situation, or if she's actually kind of knows what she's doing. Like, I think she likes Molly, at least a little bit, if not, an average amount. Someone might like somebody. But she might be milking a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Because when she mentioned the gun thing, I was like, oh no, here we go.
I know.
Because we know from the book insert that Molly is going to implicate herself to the point where the police think she did it. So, unfortunately, she has tangled herself within the whole Rodney situation and Juan Manuel. I like Juan Manuel, actually. I'd like to shout out Juan Manuel. He seems like
As like
a
the
good
one
enough
character
guy
that
who made a
like he wanted to get Molly out of the situation instead of bring her into it.
yeah, for real. Like he seemed like the only person that was like, "Hey, I got myself in this mess, but I don't
Yeah,
want you
you
in
don't
it
need to be
either,
here.
Molly." Like, yeah, it's I like Juan Manuel. I liked him from the first time he was introduced so far, but Rodney, I used to like him, but we didn't really know anything about him. We just knew from Molly's perspective on Monday that Rodney took her on a date when we were still thinking that dates were dates. And I thought, well, maybe he's kind of just like a dumb guy who took her on a date once and then just didn't do anything else after that.
Yeah.
But no, Rodney is a piece of trash, just like Wilbur.
Yeah.
Different, but the same, kind of. In my humble opinion. Uh, we're left in an interesting situation here because that's the end of Tuesday. Is Giselle asking this favor for her? And I feel the anxiety. This is not going to end well.
Yeah, it is not.
Mr. Snow specifically told her not to go there, and now she can't say no to Giselle. Understandably, I would feel very conflicted, like Molly as well, because this woman has given you money. She's told you you're like a sister to her. I think she's laying that on a little bit thick, maybe, so Molly would want to do that.
Do it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Rebecca, at
I
this point?
feel like yeah, like Giselle paid her and it, it's just such a weird dynamic. I think that she's
Yeah.
definitely trying to use Molly. Um Obviously
Do
Rodney
you
is
do
using
you think
Molly.
maybe yeah. Do you think maybe though that Giselle does like Molly to an extent, but she like
I'm sure she
maybe the
does.
plan was to use was the plan was originally to use Molly, but she actually did kind of I don't know, fall in love with Molly in a sense with the
I mean,
idea like,
what if
oh,
the
Molly is
plan
actually a good person.
what if there was no plan and now she's just like, "Oh, like this is somebody that I have on my side that I think what happened is they were friends, right? But then
Hmm.
Mr. Black is dead, and she's thinking, oh no, this is the one person I have in my corner. I need to utilize this person to
Maybe,
get the
yeah.
blame off of me. You
Because
know what I mean?
right, maybe. I like to hope that Giselle ends up however she's probably not the most perfect person. And I think she was maybe written to be that kind of way, you know? You know, or you can see like, can you ever tell if like an author's trying to lead you in a direction? That's how I kind of
Yeah.
feel about Giselle. Like maybe the author's trying to give us a little bit of a red herring in Giselle. I think Giselle isn't necessarily completely innocent in the fact of using Molly at all, but I don't think she's the bad guy. I think I don't necessarily think like what do you think about Rodney? Because you can tell that the author's trying to make you think that Rodney is involved in Mr. Black's death.
I don't
Do you
think
think
Rodney's involved in
he
his
is, or do you
death.
think he's
I think that Rodney's got his own stuff going on and he's just gonna like I don't know. I think he's got his own stuff going on and maybe she's gonna realize that he's a piece of crap. Like
yeah? I
I
think so
don't
too.
really think
That's what I was
I don't
thinking
think
because I
he
was thinking
killed Mr. Black.
right. Uh, I I would. Do you maybe think Mr. Black could have been at the wrong place in the wrong time, or do you think this was a targeted thing? Because she said it wasn't like you could tell like that he died, like he wasn't like oozing blood or had gunshot to his head or it was stabbed. Do you think there could be anything to that?
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe it might be one of like the off like kind of the side characters, like maybe Mr. Snow, like trying to bring publicity to the Regency Grand.
Oh,
You know, any publicity is good publicity. But then at the same time, I'm like, what if it was Juan Manuel? But we really haven't seen a lot of him yet, so I don't know. And then also
right.
like, what if it was Cheryl? Maybe that's why she called
Oh
out
yeah.
sick.
Remember?
Killed him.
I Yeah, I aired out that opinion last time, huh?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
uh,
I don't know. It would be interesting. Like, I'm trying to, I like to try to guess what the twist is going to be.
I
I'm
really
trying
don't think
to
it's Rodney,
be my
and I
own
really don't
detective,
think
if you
it's
will.
Giselle.
Yeah, I don't think it's Giselle or Rodney either. I think Rodney is shady. He probably is doing illegal things. And Juan Manuel is
I don't
somehow
think they're,
connected to all that.
I don't think they're
But
in any way tied to Mr. Black, though.
yeah, well, there might be like some random like out of the way like string tied to him. It could be, but I don't think they were directly involved. Like they're like we're gonna kill this guy. I don't think
Yeah,
I think
no.
if they were involved, it might have been an accident. That's what I'm saying. Uh that maybe like I'm saying if Rodney and his bad group of people were involved, it was probably Mr. Black being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Is what I'm saying. If it were them, if it, I don't know. I think maybe there's someone that we haven't thought of. What if it's Sunitha? No, I'm just kidding. That would be
Girl,
wild. Uh, but
what if it's
what if it's Sunitha?
Victoria Black, the
Ooh,
daughter?
yeah, the ex-wife. Or the daughter. Which I think Giselle mentioned that the ex-wife has always been nice to her. Uh, but Victoria
Yeah,
is the daughter. But yeah, Victoria, that is interesting because Victoria was supposed to be, and then Victoria's very quick to pin the blame on Giselle. Like maybe she's trying to set up Giselle.
yeah.
So that's interesting. Also, Giselle does do questionable things. I know Molly. I don't want to harp on this too much, but I know Molly found those Cayman Island one-way tickets, and she thought when Giselle mentioned that she wanted the Cayman Island villa, she was like, "Well, that's probably why they had the tickets." But then she was like, "Why would they be one-way tickets?" Which I thought was an interesting question. I didn't quite understand that question that she asked, but I like to think the author is not wasting our time. Hopefully, the Cayman Island tickets are not a red herring.
I think that maybe
Um,
Giselle's trying to get Molly to go in there and get that gun, so it'll take enough attention off of Giselle so that she can just get out of the situation and fly to the Cayman Islands with the deed.
oh, maybe. Oh, maybe. But we don't really know what happened to that deed. We know that Mr. Black didn't have it anymore. But yeah, that's a fair point. I don't know. I don't know. All right. Well, any more thoughts or is that it for today?
That's kind of it. I think we did pretty good.
Yeah. Lots of theories that we aired out this episode.
Yes.
Lots of ideas. Uh, our audience, let us know what you might think. If you're reading along or if you just want to hear us talk about it. What do you think is going on? Let us know. But we will work on reading the next part of the book, which is Wednesday, the next day of the week. And we'll get back to you with another episode soon. But until then, we'll be out here slinging words and pills to pay the bills.